I was contemplating whether to include this or not in today's lecture, but I've chosen to go ahead with it because although it is perhaps a little bit more advanced, it actually helps us to go sufficiently deep into this topic that I believe that you'll be able to really walk away from it thinking it's very clear to me, at least from the Sri Vaishnava standpoint, who I am. And that is an unbelievably important question to have answered. Now, I know at face value, if I tell you I'm about to answer your question of who you are, you think, that's rich. How can we do that? You don't even know me, etc., etc. And that's true. I'm not talking about telling you what your identity is, what your dharma is, none of those things. I'm talking about the universal principle of soul. I am a soul, you are a soul, we are all souls. And what that soul is in relation to the only important thing that it actually has to care about, and that is the Supreme God, then that will be very essential information for us to establish our right position, our identity, and at that point then we can start to advance in other ways, okay? To explain this to you, I'm going to explain the principle as taught by Pillai Lokacharya. Pillai Lokacharya is a very prominent Sri Vaishnava Acharya that came in the footsteps of Ramanuja Acharya, and he provided the teaching of 9 different relationships between the jiva and God. Now, these 9 relationships are not intended as being literal. They are metaphors or analogies used to describe the principle behind them and the principle of the relationship between jiva and Bhagavan. Okay, so don't take them too literally. I'll try to explain the metaphor or the analogy every time as much as I can. But remember that it's more about getting you to understand a concept of the relationship between you and God rather than taking it literally. Okay? Let's go on that journey then. Number one. Number one says, the first relationship says that God is Shesha, which means principle, and the jiva is Sheshin, which means subordinate. What do I mean by this first one? It means that God, in a sense, is the owner or the boss, and the jiva is the subordinate, the, in a sense, employee, so to speak, okay? Now, is God literally a boss and are we literally employees? No, that is a rather bleak way of looking at the situation. But again, as I said, it is about understanding the principle of it, the idea behind it, and that starts to illustrate the dynamic between the two realities of jiva and Bhagavan, Brahman, the Supreme, okay? So that is the first that he offers. The second is that God is Adhara. Adhara means sustainer, and the jiva is Adhaya, which means the sustained. So this soul must have God as its sustainer for its own existence. Similarly, just as the physical body requires the soul for its sustenance. Let me explain this further. The material body without prana, without life force within it, which is provided by the soul, the Atma, does not live. It cannot function. This is what we call death. Okay? So just as that soul sustains this body, that soul itself, our Atma, is sustained in itself by the super soul or the Paramatma, which is God. Our soul, being a portion of Him, has no independent existence outside of Him. Therefore, the Lord, or God in this particular reference, is what gives sustenance to the soul, which in turn gives sustenance to the body. Body cannot exist without the soul. Soul cannot exist without the super soul, God. The third relationship is God is Shariri and the Jiva is Sharira. So Shariri in this case means the soul, and Sharira, the body. Now this is going to be confusing. I'm saying God is the soul and the soul is the body. Well, again, it's just an analogy. If you look at me as a person, when you look at me in that video right now, you will not say to me, oh look, there is Swami Revatikanta and his soul, isn't it? Essentially what we're doing is you just look and say, well, there is Swami Revatikanta. He is an organic unit of his material body and his spiritual Atma. And they form a union that we identify by a name. And the name here is Swami Revatikanta in my particular case. Okay? However, conceptually, ideologically, philosophically, we do understand the difference and distinction between the two, the body and the soul, and that they are not equal. That the body requires the soul for its entire existence and functioning, but the soul uses the body for its expression. Similarly, in this particular relationship, the same has to be understood. If God is the soul of this example, and the soul is the body, then we must understand the same dynamics. Just as my physical body requires my spiritual soul for its purpose and existence, our soul requires God for its purpose and existence. Just like our soul uses this material body for its expression and experience, God uses our souls for its expression and experience. So just like our soul treats this body, God treats our soul, if that makes sense. Okay? Meaning it is a very intimate relationship. Because the way that our soul permeates our body is almost, not almost actually, we call it inseparable, right? It is indistinguishable. Similarly, the way God pervades all of reality, all of creation, is not perceptible, and yet it is very intimate in the same way the soul is to this material body. So it is not the same thing as someone who has an object, for example, a phone. That the phone is something I own, is something I use, but it actually has no intimate relationship to me. It's a one-sided, superficial relationship. I can discard it at any time, and it means nothing. Okay? It is a far more intimate, far more intrinsic relationship than that example which I just provided. Okay? Now, the fourth of these 9 relationships is God is Pitra, which means father, and the Jiva is Putra, which means son. This does not mean God is a male and the soul is a male. This is, again, when you take the analogy too far. It is just there to illustrate one very simple point, and that is that one comes from the other, and one cannot exist without the other giving birth to it or giving existence to it, so to speak. Okay? If the Jiva, like Krishna spoke, is a part of something, then that something from which it is a part must also be in existence and superior, as it is greater or a whole, and the Jiva is only the part. So in that sense we say God is father, soul is son, to illustrate that type of relationship between the two, that one comes from the other unmistakably. Okay? The fifth relationship among them is God is Rakshaka, which means he is the savior, and the Jiva is Rakshya, which means the saved. That the Jiva is completely dependent on God for its liberation. It is a completely dependent being in relation to God. The Jiva is entangled in this material nature, and as we observe in our own lives, and the Shastras speak of this also, we constantly revolve on this wheel of samsara. We find it to be so difficult to escape. And I'll give you one very clear reason why. And it goes back to my explanation of the mind. Okay? If you remember what I explained to you in the mind, I said that there was manas, chitta, buddhi, but there was also ahamkar. Okay? The decisions that a ahamkar-dominated mind will make are always going to be primarily from the chitta. Because the buddhi is clouded, the buddhi is not being allowed to work properly. Now this chitta, our lake of previous experiences, it can only behave in a way that it has already perceived before. It cannot decide for you to do something which you have never witnessed or seen or experienced in some way or another. That's how memories work. The memory puts forward a response according to the data it has available to it. But remember that every decision that that mind has made has essentially been under the dominion of your ego, of ahamkar. And the ego will never do one thing, and that is it will never sabotage itself. The ahamkar will never say, let's do something that will weaken myself and strengthen this this spiritual identification, the soul. Because it is against the nature of ahamkar, the nature and purpose of ego. Therefore, in a normal human life or in a normal circumstance, we are trapped by the decisions of ahamkar because ahamkar never decides to do something against itself. As it doesn't decide to do things against itself, we just feed more and more and more ahamkar-driven decisions into our chitta, our lake of memories and impressions and habits. So we are only strengthening our materialism and our attachment and our material identification the more we exist and live in this material world. And it takes something beyond our ego, something beyond matter, to get involved in this equation to help bring us out of this trap. And this is where we speak of Narayana, of God, of grace, of God as Rakshaka, Savior. And we speak then of the Jiva as Rakshya, the saved. Because God, being transcendental or transcendent to that mind, He operates and can control that mind to awaken spiritual experiences. He provides us with spiritual experiences, glimpses of the truth, so that that ahamkar or that chitta may start to guide us towards those decisions and those experiences. And that slowly starts the subduing process of the ahamkar, the ego. The best then is to have the spiritual master, the guru, because then he is essentially doing one job and one job only. That the spiritual master is cutting down this ahamkar, suppressing this ahamkar, making this ahamkar bow down. So that once this has bowed down, once this has been suppressed and once it has been cut away, then our buddhi allows us to see things clearly through the knowledge and practices that the Satguru has imparted. The soul may be realized. Once the soul has been realized, we will speak of that later on. Okay? But essentially, this dynamic that I've explained to you now, God is Rakshaka, we are Rakshya. God is the Savior, we are the saved, is in its more common expression, it is this, is that He gives us grace to go beyond our self-sabotaging limitation, that is our ego, our ahamkar from our mind that traps us. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the mind is either your best friend or your worst enemy. It is your worst enemy when ahamkara is in control. It is your best friend when ahamkara is subdued, because then it is buddhi that is acting, and buddhi is the gateway to the soul. So the decision is always good. It is with proper discernment. Okay? This is the proper way to look at it.